Hello and welcome back to my channel. I was tagged in a tag video, which is not something that happens very often. I usually don't do tags, but in this case I was tagged by the Grimm Reader, and I am going to do the tag because she tagged me. And also this is the Booktube Backstage Tag, and I've really enjoyed watching other people's answers to these interesting prompts. So I'm happy to give my own contribution. So question number one, what camera do you use for your videos? So right here next to me, I have this big thing. This is a mirror. Okay, so I'm going to turn this mirror around and you will see exactly what my setup looks like, and you will see what my messy room looks like, and you will see yourself. So prepare to see yourself. Here we go. There it is. That is the my setup. It's a Pixel 2 on a tripod. Pixel 2 is my standard phone, and that's what I use. Go ahead. Next question. Speaking about filming and being your own director, do you have a favorite film director? So if you asked me this question like 4 years ago, I would have had an easy answer. I would say probably either it would be Wes Anderson, or it would be the Coen brothers, or it would be Quentin Tarantino. And the reason is because those are three directors that I love. I've seen a lot of each of their works, and if I were to like take my top 10 movies of all time, 4 or 5 years ago, those directors would be very heavily represented. Now my tastes have changed a little bit. I've sort of expanded, I think, my tastes, and those directors aren't really in my top 5, top 10 as much anymore. They've been pushed down. But the movies that are in my top 5, top 10, like, I don't really know the directors. So I don't have a great answer. But I'll tell you that probably my favorite movie of all time right now, movie that I'm still haunted by. I actually watched it 2 times in a row in subsequent nights, and despite having a sort of hard attention span, like a bad attention span when it comes to watching movies, I was like glued to it, is Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And I actually got to discuss that movie with Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse, and Lukash at A Cruel Reader's Thesis, among other booktubers and interesting people. So that was really a thrill. Okay, what microphone do you use, and what program do you use to edit your videos? This is like a $15 lapel mic that I found on Amazon. I actually, at one point, when I was starting off, purchased a much more expensive mic. I don't know, maybe like $250 if I remember correctly. But for whatever reason, possibly because I don't really know how to use it so well, or because I don't have a good boom for the mic or something, I never really got it to work for me. So I've used it in some of my videos, but this $15 lapel mic for me seems to work just as well. Probably because I'm doing something wrong, but whatever, it is what it is. So in terms of recording, I use iMovie to edit my videos. Okay, next question. Do you remember the first record that you bought or received as a gift? So I do remember that. Yeah, I remember it very fondly. I remember I was young. It's probably in 7th grade. For me, records were CDs. That's what I had growing up. And I remember, it was Guns N' Roses. It was a Guns N' Roses album, and I was totally entranced by Guns N' Roses at the time. Other early albums that I remember loving and treasuring from the start of my very first collection of CDs would include 9 Inch Nails, Eminem, Pink Floyd, and Nirvana. And I often think back to those times because I didn't like childhood all that much. I felt sort of eager to get out of childhood for all sorts of reasons, who knows why. I mean, I had a nice childhood, but I just wasn't, the autonomy or whatever it was. But I remember like flashes of like real bliss associated with music when I was very young. And what I mean by that is just like secluded in my room from a young age, middle school, just like me and my music, and that being like the most transcendent experiences of that time period in my life. Okay. And I also think back to like sort of the spiritual significance of those like artifacts, right? The CDs as artifacts, like a little CD case, which I could like show to other people and trade, and the sense in which that's gone now, right? Because I use Spotify which has its advantages, but also lacks the materiality, which I sometimes reminisce about. Anyway, moving on. Okay. How do you prepare your videos? Talking points, a detailed script, or just talking? So for me, it's always talking points. When I read a book, I sort of make notes, take notes as I go, either handwritten or typed up. And when I want to make a video, I'm sort of collecting those notes into sort of bullet points that I want to hit. For me, when I'm coming up with a video, there's this interesting phenomenon where I'm trying to get it ready, I'm trying to get something ready, and then it just clicks, and like I know it's ready, you know. And I never want to put anything out that I don't feel really excited about. I consider myself like the main audience of my videos. Like, these are videos that I want to be able to go back to in the future and look back and be like, oh, that's what I was thinking at the time. So I never want to put out anything filler. So just to give an example, right? For this recent, I read 100 Years of Solitude with some friends, and I put out a video very recently about it. For weeks before that video came out, I was convinced I was going to be making a video on the theme of solitude in the book 100 Years of Solitude, which in my opinion is an interesting theme to trace. And I was like looking at the book, all the places solitude appeared and all the different ways in which it was being presented. And that video was like always 80% ready to go. Like, it never felt complete to me. And so I was just sitting on it, you know, and never recording it, never writing it down. And then like a day before I put out that video, I just made a new connection. Just a new connection between two books that I'd read. And then all of a sudden, I threw out more or less everything I'd prepared, and the outline just appeared to me, you know, very, very quickly, and it was ready to go. So that's sort of the process for me, where, you know, I'll probably go through major dry spells, you know, weeks at a time, where I have nothing to say, and I'm okay with that. But when it clicks, it just clicks and it comes fast. Okay, next. TV shows have become the thing of our time. Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, Netflix, HBO, and Amazon. What are your favorite TV shows ever? So, I'm very strange in this regard. I have like really never been able to get into TV shows for the longest time. I tried Game of Thrones, like I tried Breaking Bad, I tried even Seinfeld. The list goes on and on. The West Wing. These are shows that I've tried, and for whatever reason, it's maybe an attention span kind of thing, the time commitment, just sort of opportunity cost. I never really could get into any TV shows. I did watch Stranger Things. I thought it was amusing. I didn't love it. Certainly, it was obviously watchable. And of course, it's a wonderful thing to do with my wife, you know, when we're just sort of hanging out, put on a television show. But recently, very recently, there's an exception to this. There was a TV show that I saw with my wife that I actually really enjoyed. And this is probably the only TV show I can think of that sort of falls into this category, because like I said, for the most part, TV shows just don't seem to work on me. And this was Ted Lasso, and it's on Apple Plus, I think. And it was funny, in my opinion. It was wholesome, in my opinion. The characters were really interesting. I thought Jason Sudeikis, who was the main character, was just like absolutely brilliant. And it's a story of a coach, and he's like coaching. He's a football coach coaching a soccer team, and I'm a coach too. I'm not coaching during this year of COVID, but previously I've coached high school wrestling teams, and just the dynamics in that episode. Jason Sudeikis is like such a wholesome guy, and he's so positive, and he's concerned much more about the experience of his athletes than winning and losing, you know. And that's something I could totally relate to. Another dynamic there is like Jason Sudeikis is not good at like yelling at his, you know, athletes. So like in my sport, among my friends who are coaches, like some of them are really good motivators with like intensity and yelling, and I just can't do that. And so some of the dynamics with Jason Sudeikis and his athletes, I really resonated with, and found really entertaining, and I found the pacing and the tone of the show to be quite funny. So that's mine. Okay. What kind of Booktube videos do you prefer to watch and why? Reviews, wrap-ups, vlogs, book hauls, tag videos, author interviews, Q&A videos, unboxing videos, etc. So I took some notes here. I might consult my notes as I talk, just so I don't leave out anything. Usually I try not to do that, but for this tag video, I'm not going to be so worried about consulting notes when I talk. Okay, so for me, I don't have specific answers. You know, the short answer is like sort of none of them. You know, like none of these really appeal to me. What I'm interested in when I watch videos is a couple things, and I want to explain to you what those are. So number one, I get inspiration, right? I see people who are much better readers than I am, and I say to myself, these are people that I want to be able to emulate more and learn from as much as I can. So that's sort of a number one thing. And in terms of the content of the video, for me the most important thing is like a kind of deep engagement with the text, and that can mean, of course, many different things. But for example, just again, like I said, there's no one way to do this. It's very, very general and ambiguous and broad, intentionally so. But for example, if you say like, I like a book, okay, or I don't like a book, or it's middling, okay, I want you to assume that I disagree, okay? If you like the book, I want you to assume I hate the book, or vice versa. And then I want you to really convince me to change my mind. And by doing so, not just talking vaguely, oh, the writing style is so great, prove it. That's what I want. I want you to take the text and prove it from the text why my contrarian opinion is wrong and your opinion is correct. And that's what I mean by a deep engagement with the text. Like, books have so much to say. One of the things that frustrates me on Booktube sometimes is when I feel like I click on a video and it's like a catalog. So-and-so's like going through, maybe it's a kind of shelf tour. I personally don't like shelf tours, for example, because, I feel like books that either I'm curious about or books that I love or have a mixed reaction to, it's just they go through, oh, look at this book here. I read this book in 10 years ago with this author and I liked it. And then you move on. And it's like, the book has so much to say. I mean, I can get that from a list on Goodreads, So that's sort of my take, and people do it in many different ways. People engage with the text in all sorts of wonderful ways here on Booktube. But that's sort of what I'm really looking for. Some sort of engagement, how the text affected you, why you liked it or why you didn't like it, but really drawing from what the book has to offer, and not just talking vaguely in broad strokes. Let's see what else. I'm going to consult my notes here. What else I had to say about this question. Yeah, okay, I wrote here, I want a video with this thesis. I wrote here, change my mind. I wrote here, talk about what happens and the plot, the characters, the language, and don't ask me to take your word for it. So that's basically what I just said. I also wrote here, if it's talking about a nonfiction book, I would love to hear what you learned, right? That's such a simple question. Pick any nonfiction book for myself, okay? The Origins of Totalitarianism, okay? If I'm gonna talk about this book, like, I want to tell you what I learned from this book. It's like the most simple gesture, Like if you read a book and you learned something, please share with me a little bit of what you learned. You don't have to don't summarize the book. It's not what I'm asking for. But like, engage deeply and personally with the text instead of just sort of cataloging it, listing it off. Oh, this is a book that I read. That sort of is what I look for in these videos. Okay, let's see what else I got here. Turn the page in my notes. Okay. So I want to give another thought about these videos. One of the things that have frustrated me a little bit from the beginning is I've always felt that our wonderful world of people making videos, it feels very constrained, very scripted, And I just wanted to highlight some examples of videos that are breaking the script, sort of less constrained, more creative, that I love, because I love creativity in videos, because we're dealing with art, right? We're not talking about data tables, timetables. These are works of creativity. So some examples of what I love. I love contrarian book reviews. I want someone to tell me, it could be sincere or tongue-in-cheek, it doesn't matter. I love videos. I should say it this way. I love videos when people take a book which is beloved by so many people, and they explain and they make the argument this book is trash and this book is terrible. Take Ovid's Metamorphoses, take Pride and Prejudice, and go through and tell me why this is a terrible, terrible book that is way overrated. Or vice versa, take 50 Shades of Grey, or take a book that's like some self-published guy who has no readers, and tell me why there's flashes of brilliance that are worth remembering or worth thinking about. What else did I write here? I love misreadings. I love a video about read Hamlet, for example, and tell me intentionally present the book as if the Prince of Denmark is actually legitimately deranged and crazy, and that actually he's a tragic kind of villain who takes down his whole family because of his hallucinations about a murder that never happened. You know, I love like sort of the physical absurdity, the physical comedy. Get excited and knock over your tripod, you know, onto the floor or something, and have to pick it up, or take a phone call and you know, troll the audience a little bit. You know, take a phone call during your Booktube video. I love that kind of stuff. In terms of like a reading vlog, I love a Booktube video where someone maybe is reading like Beckett's The Unnameable or something, and they do, you know, maybe like 20 pages a day, and they check in every day or every few days. And in the beginning, they're all excited to be reading Beckett, and they've heard good things, and they're feeling great. And over time, you see that this book is like wearing down on them, and they're becoming a little bit more and more disconnected from themselves, a little bit less grounded. They're looking a little bit more and more gaunt. You get the sense that maybe this person is sort of stopped eating as they become more and more disturbed and unsettled by this stream of consciousness that they're falling into. You know, that kind of a thing. For example, when I was looking at videos about 100 Years of Solitude, you know, one of my favorite videos that I came across is just a guy. It's called Why You Should Read. The title is Why You Should Read 100 Years of Solitude. And you click on the video, and it's a guy gesticulating, and he's talking, and he's pausing, and all these things. But all he says for about 5 minutes is just magical realism, magical realism, magical realism, magical realism for 5 minutes. You know, I love that. It's trolling the audience, and the audience deserves to be trolled. I love it when people take a book which is not a work of fiction, and they treat it like a work of fiction. For example, the DSM, which is the Encyclopedia of Psychological Disorders, and just review that like it's some postmodern work about the derangements of man. You know, review it like a work of fiction. I love literary hoaxes. You know, have a Zoom interview with an author and discuss this author's forthcoming biography of some unknown middle-aged thinker, except of course this guy didn't actually write any biography, and there's no forthcoming biography, and this medieval theologian is actually an invention, and talk about what it's like tracking down these documents, you know, and tracing the life of this unusual person who was so iconoclastic. I love the idea of having a Zoom conversation or an in-person conversation where you're talking to the camera and there's someone next to you, and that person just stands there and doesn't say a single word the entire time. And so the whole time the audience is like, who is this person? Are they going to say something? You know, just trolling the audience. I love the idea of a Zoom call where both speakers, you know, they pick their topic of discussion and they just go, you know, simultaneously. Because usually in Zoom calls, there's a lot of like, oh, I'm sorry, like we're talking over each other, bad connection. You know, just embrace that. Just totally accept that and have two people just speak simultaneously at the same time. Just go, talk over each other. Make no intention, no hope of ever trying to hear what the other person is saying, and just 5 minutes of monologuing, two people at the audience, and then say, oh, thank you, that was a great conversation, it was wonderful talking with you, and then, you know, that's it, close the video. For example, I love like exhaustive videos, lists, videos that just sort of go on and on and on. So for example, the book Blood Meridian has so many incredible similes. I wish someone would just make a video where they just list all the similes in Blood Meridian. Like decorations for some barbaric celebration. Like the backs of sea beasts in a Devonian dawn. Like the tufted stalks of mutant desert growths. Like cave folk exchanging at some nameless trade. Like the ossified eggs of some primal ground bird. Like hot scurf blown from some unreckonable forge. Like creatures driven to alien forms of locomotion. Like the markings of some alien and antique serpent. Like strands of the night from which they'd ridden. Like a blindfold mannequin raised awake by a string. Like horses called forth quivering out of the abyss. Like some wild thaumaturge out of an atavistic drama, like some pale and bloated manatee surfaced in a bog, like one called upon to witness some appalling thing, like the shade of old work through sizing on a canvas, like a myriad of eyes winking across the desert floor, like a murdered anchorite descaled in ashes and sark, like the implements of some primitive equestrian game, like fugitives from some great fire at the earth's end, like men themselves at the mercy of something terrible, like tentacles to bind them to the darkness yet to come, like the ossature of small apes at their place of murder, like some fabled equine ideation out of an Attic tragedy, like blood legatees of an order both imperative and remote, like pilgrims exhausted upon the face of the planet Anareta, like some reeking issue of the incarnate dam of war herself, like some deserter scavenging the ruins of a city he'd fled, like a witch's signature on the black face of the firmament, like some monster slain in the commission of unnatural acts, like something foundered there on which the sea was teething, like supplicants at the skirts of some wild and irate goddess, like dried and blackened fish lashed to the floors of his feet, like men returning late from a social, from a wedding or a death, like a company armed and like a company of armed and mounted millers wandering in dementia, like the reflection of a single star in a lake of utter blackness, like some immense and naked barrister whom the country had crazed, like the blood beat of some living thing eviscerate upon the ground, like paper spills twisted into either side of a hairy loaf of dough, like old ivory boughs heaped in the aftermath of some legendary battle, like a gingham print to the farthest serried rimlands blue with haze, like burning holothurians in the phosphorus dark of the sea's deep, like beings of a mode little more than tangential to the world at large, like men invested with a purpose whose origins were antecedent to them, like small loosened eggs concocted alchemically out of the desert darkness, like the back of some pale sea beast surfaced among the dark archipelagos, like stumps of great stone tree boles and stones the lightning had clove open, like a raggedy man wandered from some garden where he used to frighten birds, like polyps bluely wet or luminescent melons cooling on some mesa of the moon, like fellows of some righteous initiate given up to vows of silence and of death, like the earth's long echo of lance and spear in old encounters forever unrecorded, like a land of some other order out there whose true geology was not stone but fear, like a slender stylus marking the hour with its particular and faintly breathing shadow, like wardens of some dim sect sent forth to proselytize among the very beasts of the land, like some third aspect of their presence hammered out black and wild upon the naked grounds, like the cries of souls broke through some misweave in the weft of things into the world below, like the embreachment of some ultimate alchemic work decocted from out the secret dark of the earth's heart, like those vaporous beings in regions beyond right knowing, where the eye wanders and the lip jerks and drools. Like some scurrilous king, stripped of his vestiture and driven together with his fool into the wilderness to die. Like some demon kingdom, summoned up, or changeling land, that come the day would leave them neither trace nor smoke nor ruin more than any troubling dream. Like mechanisms whose movements are monitored with escapement and palate, so that they appear restrained by a prudence of reflectiveness which has no inner reality. Like shapes capable of violating their covenant with the flesh that authored them, and continuing autonomous across the naked rock without reference to sun or man